Synthesizing impact sound effects has always been a vital part of our plugin, and the new Modal Explosify node further expands our framework by generating vibration distortions. Distortion is not only a vital tool for creating realistic explosive sound, it can also make sci-fi or magic effects more interesting. Let's learn about this new node through a simple setup first. Previous nodes, like Impact Force synthesizers, rely on physical models to generate sounds from scratch. This node will sample and generate distortions from an audio input. You can use it after our Impact synthesizer nodes or as a wave player, which makes it very powerful. To simplify things, I use a single wave file here, which is generated from an Impact synthesizer node. We will mix both layers before connecting to the output mono node. I'm making sure we let it know when the wave is finished. Let's hear the original sound first. And with only the distortion layer. Just like its name suggests, this node can turn any input sound into an explosion sound. Creating explosion effects is now extremely easy. These inputs are self-explanatory. These three inputs are what you will have to tune based on your audio and your intended effects. The number of modals decides how many filters are used to sample the input audio. Fmin and Fmax are the range of sample frequency bands. If this is 32, then 128 frequency bands from 25 Hz to 19,500 Hz are sampled. Sound a lot, but they do not run simultaneously. And they are vectorized, so they run pretty fast. The default values are set to work well for any kind of sound, but generally you will want to tune them down to optimize the performance. Normally, I suggest that you set the number of modals to 16. If you play it again, you will notice that the output sounds a bit more metallic. That is because 16 can't cover the whole frequency range. Thus, you will need to reduce Fmax. For most sounds, you can reduce this to below than 5,000 Hz. The lower the value, the stronger the low to mid frequency signals. Note that Fmax only limits the maximum sampled frequency band of the input audio. Because this node adds distortion, the output will still contain high frequency signals. For example, if I set this to only 300 Hz, you can still hear those high frequency distortions. If you want the output to only contain lower frequencies, then you can use a filter node. A cheap one-pass filter node like this is usually good enough. Now it sounds like a faraway explosion. Without filtering, it sounds nearer thanks to high-frequency signals. If we play both layers at the same time, feel like something hits and explodes. To explain the next input, I will change Fmax back to 5,000. The frequency spread determines how the frequency bands between Fmin and Fmax are divided. We use a Lugmel curve to calculate their ranges, and this input is the slope of the curve. If you reduce this down, most filters will sample low and mid-frequency ranges. And if you increase it, more filters will be used for mid and high-frequency ranges. The minimum value of this input is 0.25. Now, let's try using the maximum value, which is 2. Also, we will filter this. By sampling more mid to high frequency ranges, you make it sound more metallic. It sounds less like an explosion and more like a magic or sci-fi impact, which we will take a look at later. For now, set it back to 0.25. As usual, Takemin controls the duration of the effect. If I set this to 0.5, I can create a longer explosion. A bit too long, I guess. If I set it to 12, I'll have something like a muzzle firing effect. Let's use the default value again. To make the effect more realistic, a decay rate of all frequencies is not equal. Just like in the real world, the higher they are, the faster they decay. This decay curve scale input controls the increment speed. If you increase it, high frequencies will decay even faster, and decreasing will make their decay rate more similar to low frequencies. For example, let's try a value of 5. With such a high value, I think we don't even need a filter node here. Finally, the gain controls the loudness, not much to say about it. With just a simple input sound, we can create an extremely wide range of unique explosion effects. And each time you run this node, you will have different variations. To make them vary even more, you can use random nodes to initialize this node with different parameters. For example, the easiest way is to vary the frequency spread in a small range. Then we can vary decay min and its decay curve scale. Don't use a large range for decay min, else you will create unique effects instead of variations. A small tip when setting random values is that you should test them directly first. Like testing both min. Then testing both max. This allows you to make sure the whole range works as intended. Overall, a very powerful node for explosions. If you open the pistol graph, you will see that we use it to create the base punch. Before, we used a separate layer, but by using this node, we have a better result. And since it's generated by the muzzle layer, they can merge better. Other graphs, like auto rifles, grenades, now also follow this approach. Let's see how it is used in other sound types. The melee weapon sounds we used in the reverb demo are based on this graph. Nothing too complicated here, just some random nodes for variations. F-min, F-max, a low-pass filter, and a high-pass filter are set to make sure the graph works with any input sound. Also, this is how it sounds if you turn off distortion. We named it Metal Heavy Clashes, but as usual, you can create any kind of impact sounds by changing the input model. By the way, if you reduce the decay scale of this impact node, it starts to sound like some magic spells. Cosine force will sound better for magic. After this update, we plan to create some magic spell graphs. We also improved some of the graphs with this node. And as usual, we have fixed them with a new version like this. And that's all you need to know about the Modal Explosify node. I hope you find this node useful for your sound effect workflow. Bye for now, and I will see you again once we have a new important feature to announce.